Lovely talking to you. Uh, why can't you introduce yourself, please?
Bhavnesh, thanks for having me. Super excited to be here today and being given the opportunity to speak to all of our veteran and military colleagues out there. Welcome you all. So my name is Rory Brown. I'm based in London, working for NTT Data Inc. I'm part of the global HR team, working as head of data and digital transformation. I've been here about a year and a half now. Prior to working here, I worked for a number of years for Genpact, also worked for Bombardier. I worked for Benteler Automotive, and I've also worked for JP Morgan. So that's my career after the army. So when I was in the army, I was in a member of the British Army, the Queen's Royal Hussars, and so I commissioned into a cavalry regiment. So that's Challenger 2 tanks, served in Afghanistan on Herrick 15 as a joint forward attack controller, a JTAC. Prior to the army, I was in university at Trinity College Dublin and Oxford University. So that's a quick, rapid fire introduction of the life of Rory Brown over the last 15 to 20 years.
Perfect. That sounds very incredible. So that's very nice and precise. Just a quick thing. So how do you feel from veteran to a corporate, like from joining from veteran to a corporate circle and the life? How do you feel about it?
Oh, well, I'm delighted that I left the army. When I did, I left when I was probably 28, 29. I'd done everything that I wanted to do in the military. I'd served in Afghanistan. I'd led some great people over my time. Gone on lots of adventures, seen lots of countries, really had a fantastic life experience. So it was the right time for me to leave at that time. But yeah, it's been a journey, and being part of that journey or being on that journey has been it's been an amazing learning adventure for me as I've moved into the civilian world, which of course is different. And as I'm sure a lot of the folks that are probably listening to me are starting on that journey. Yeah, I'm here maybe to talk through some of the things that at least I faced whilst going through that journey.
Glad to know your experience. Few of the questions that I would love to know from your experiences. So my first question to you is, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced when transitioned from military to civilian life?
Okay, so it's a good question. Um, so I didn't know what I wanted to do, quite honestly, when I was leaving the military. So I think a broad part of, or one of the biggest challenges was figuring out what do you want to do. And quite honestly, I'm not sure that I knew exactly what I wanted to do, even when I decided to leave. Right. So figuring out what exactly you want to do is critical, and why do you want to do it? So always understanding, why do I want to do this, or what am I going to do, and why do I want to do it? I think that's one. I think the second one was, how do you explain to somebody as you transition out of the military into civilian world, what value can you bring? Right. So
Mhm.
how can you translate what my experience is and what value this has for you as a corporate, right? So that was, I think, one of the biggest challenges that I faced when I was leaving the military is just being able to explain or articulate that in a comprehensible way to a civilian. And I guess the last one that I'd mention is a lot of self-doubt. I really wasn't sure whether this is the right thing to be doing, whether I was making the right decision. Should I stay in the military? Should I leave the military? I had a family in the military. I understood the military. I knew what I was doing. I had a career path. And I think I was vulnerable, right? Moving into the civilian world, you're vulnerable. I think as military personnel, you have that fundamental fear of failure. And actually, one of the things that I've learned, having become a civilian is not to be afraid of failing. But I was really afraid of failing when I was leaving the military, and that can really limit your ability in some cases to shine as you leave the military. So I think they'd be the three things that I'd probably bring to the fore.
True that. So that's a very great experience that you have shared, and I'm really thankful to it. Moving to the next question I have for you is, how can veterans efficiently translate their military skills and experiences into the civilian or into the corporate job market? And especially if I ask about referring to this question is about into IT or into the tech industry.
Yeah. So um, I don't know the exact answer for this, but I'll tell you what I did. Right. So when I first wrote my CV and I sent it out for people to have a look at it, nobody understood what I'd done, quite honestly. Um, there was a lot of things on there that were very military or army speak. That quite honestly, a military person would understand, but no civilian would understand it. Some of the terms that we were using, some of the acronyms I was using, some of the language I was using, it just didn't make any sense. So what I did was I created effectively an ontology of so what are my skills? What do I think my skills are? Um, and then what does this translate to in terms of corporate language or banking language or whatever industry you're going into, so not all
Yeah.
ontologies may be the same. So you may have a technology industry ontology. So if I'm moving from, I don't know, a cyber defense position as part of signals, what does that translate to as somebody that's moving into a network provider or wants to work for a cloud solution provider or whatever? You've got to basically be able to convert that into what does that actually mean? Okay. So I'd recommend that everybody or anybody create an ontology for themselves that this is my skill and that this is what it means in the corporate world. One. The second one is really around storytelling. So I'm a massive advocate of storytelling and being able to bring somebody on a journey in a simple way so that they are engaged and they're bought into um, that journey with you, that situation with you, that challenge that you had to come and that they can empathize with you as part of that overall communication that you're trying to bring to life. So some of the simple ways, and I use this in my CV. My first CV leaving was the SCAR methodology, if people don't know it, or the STAR methodology, right? So SCAR is very simple: situation, challenges, actions, results, or STAR is situations, triggered, action, results. So either one is quite effective. So you can basically help somebody, this was the situation I was in. These are the challenges that we were facing. These were the actions or what we did to try and bring us through that journey or over those challenges. And these were the, therefore, impending results, the results that we got out of it. So I would say that work on storytelling.
Well said, beautifully well said. So love that experience. So I'm very curious to understand. So like, if any veteran want to join into the tech industry, so what sort of certifications or the courses would you likely to recommend someone who is very new to this tech?
So I guess there's two parts to that. One is if you know which company you want to go to, it makes it easier. And so if you're targeting, I don't know, um, Cisco or Apple or AWS or whoever, there's a load of material out there, right? So there's LinkedIn Learning, there's a load of stuff on YouTube. I love the bite-sized types of learning that's available on YouTube. So, there is stuff on LinkedIn or, that doesn't necessarily have a certificate related to it, but there's learning there, right? So you can learn, and that's the way learning is going. Learning has become far more less orientated around I've got a certification in this, therefore I know it, as against this is information or learning that I've done on the way. So this is one piece, I think, that you could look at it if you know where you're going. Alternatively, and this is my own personal experiences. I'm a Lean Six Sigma, master black belt. So I'm a huge advocate of doing anything related to Lean Six Sigma. So if it's a lean course, if it's a green belt or yellow belt, or maybe a black belt, if you are able to find a good provider of that training, then it's a great thing to have on your CV. Similarly, Scrum or any of the Agile courses that are available will really help anybody that's interested in project management or product lifecycle development to understand it, and also have a certificate there. And of course, any of the design thinking courses that are out there, one institute that I can recommend, I've done a lot of stuff on it, is the Luma Institute. I think if they're still going around design thinking, they've got great tools that will help you become a better design thinking practitioner, which is a really great capability to have. And the last one, of course, I mentioned it before, is a softer skill, but it's that storytelling, right? So how can I become a better storyteller so that, number one, I can get a job, right, and tell my story to get that job, but also as soon as I get into that job, be able to deliver and communicate more effectively in terms of the outcomes that you're delivering from an individual within that job.
Wow, so that is a lot of good information that everyone can learn from it. It's just not only the veteran, like the normal civilian can take this guidance and these steps to get into the tech. But thank you. That's a good advice. Moving on to next question that I have in my mind. How can mentorship programs benefit veterans? And what should they look for in a mentor to proceed into the tech? And if you can share some of your experiences, so that will help veterans who get into the mentorship program.
Yeah, so mentoring or any mentor um, program in my experience has been great. Right? So I have always had a mentor in my life. I currently have two, right? So I always have somebody that is helping or guiding me, and it's an amazing um, it's amazing thing to have if you get a good one or the right one to help you on that journey, right? And what I just said there is really important. So when you're transitioning from the military, you need to make sure that it's not necessarily you need a mentor straight away, but having that network. So having that group of um, maybe veterans or ex-military people that have just transitioned around you is extremely powerful, because it's a common journey that people are going that they're on. It's a shared journey, right? It's a shared challenge that people are going on. And sharing experiences with other veterans going through this, sharing networks through veterans that are going through this same journey, can be an extremely powerful way of getting to the job potentially that you want to get to. I actually got one of my first jobs, JP Morgan, not through a mentor per se, but rather my network or another military person that was like, I've got this job here. It's not for me. Do you want to have a look at it? And I ended up getting the job, which was great. I felt that it was probably post that, once I settled into an organization, 6 to 12 months after that, that then I've said, right, now it's time for me to get somebody that will bring me on this journey, or will help me or guide me through what I should do and how to navigate the corporate environment more effectively, right? Because it takes time, and it takes time to settle in. And picking that person or getting that person to mentor you is then something that is a very, very personal thing. So I can't say that these are the things that you should look for, don't look for, because it's different for everybody. But What is extremely important is that you should have some level of bond with that person and that they need to have time for you, right? So there's no point in getting somebody that is so busy that they can't spend any time with you, right? Because it's not really mentoring then. Okay.
100% agreed. I mean, that is something that will be helpful. In fact, so that will be a great learning from me as well. Thank you. Moving on to next question that I have in my mind is, are there common challenges faced by veterans globally? And what kind of solutions would you provide across different countries?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned it in your first question. I think the biggest challenge that um, veterans encounter, no matter what country you're in, is explaining the value that you add as an individual to an organization, right? And being able to translate that in a way that somebody can understand what you're saying, right? Understand that value and will buy into that. I think that's a given. The second challenge is, and this is something that every veteran may or may not have to take upon themselves, is that sometimes progression is not linear, linear and upwards, right? So sometimes you will have to take a step back, and you may have to take a um, a lower level in a company than you might have wanted to. Okay, so a lot of people that leave the army, military, or wherever, they've had very, very senior positions. They've had, large levels of responsibility. And when they come out, it's not always directly translated or translatable into a corporate, right? And it may never not be translatable into a corporate. So having the understanding and the confidence within yourself to overcome that challenge that you may have to take a step back is something that I think all veterans are or may be aware of, but I hope have the humility to overcome and have the self-belief that the cream will rise to the top and you'll get there eventually. Or perhaps even faster than your other colleagues that have trod the traditional route. So have the confidence that you may not go in at a level position, but you will make it if you're good enough.
Wow, great. Thank you. One last question. I know that I've been asking you back to back questions. One key part that will be very helpful for all the veterans and someone who is transitioning from veteran to corporate into tech industry. So what are the whys that you think that would be very helpful for the veterans moving to tech industry, or they're already planning to do it, or they're doing it?
Put yourself out there, right? So attend veteran events, speak to people. So speak to other veterans if you can on LinkedIn. Speak to your friends that are in or are leaving or have just left the military, because they're your they're your pathfinders, right? They've just gone before you. Um, don't be afraid of failing. That's the biggest one that I'd probably um, bring to the fore. I was petrified of failing, so this is a really personal one. I was petrified of failing, and I think perhaps if I hadn't been so afraid of failing, I probably would have done better, and I'd have been more successful in my transition. Um, so network, use those that have gone before you to help you in your path, and don't be afraid of getting knocked back and failing. They're the three things that I would leave as in terms of advice, Avnesh.
Great. Lovely having you on our
Thank you.
session regarding the veteran.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. So this will be very
Pleasure.
helpful for
Pleasure.
the veteran, and that can change many people's lives as well. Thank you for
Pleasure.
joining in the session. Take
Thank you
care.
for having me. Thank you, Bhavnesh. Good luck to everybody. Bye bye.